And again, we're going to start at that front foot strike position and just seeing how these back foots are all turned over and how that gets the knee then to really turn over, which then drives that hip forward. Okay. And if we then just kind of take this back and slide over here just a little bit, and we just watch what that foot's doing and how it's driving into our stride, rotating that back foot into our stride. Boom, front foot strike. Same thing over here with Durham, watching that back foot turn over, turn over, turn over, finishing the knees complete rotation, back knees complete rotation, and ultimately, and most importantly, getting that back hip to start to come forward at front foot strike. So then everything can get continually driven out in front as we rotate down and around. Down, out in front as we continue to go through with our energy. Turn your body into a whip. Watching the back foot, how we're turning over, driving through that big toe, into our foot strike. Strong, stable knee. What's it going to do? It's going to lock out. It's going to lock out. It's going to lock out. Same thing with the back foot. Driving through that big toe there, through that big toe, into our front foot strike, so that way that back hip ultimately starts to get driven forward. So then we can finish everything out in front and down that mound. So we can get out in front and down that mound. Driving through that back toe, through that back toe, through that back toe, through that back toe, getting that back hip to start to come forward at front foot strike, so then we can rotate everything down and out in front. Back foot, back foot, back foot, back foot. What's the knee doing during that time? Look at the back knee turning completely over, rotating all the way over. Kneecaps facing back of this heel. Turn that knee all the way over, getting that foot to fold over the big toe. When we do that into our stride, the back hip starts to come forward. So then we can rotate everything down out in front. What's that lead leg doing? Locking out, locking out, locking out, locking out. Back foot, how's it getting there? Driving through the big toe, driving through the big toe, driving through the big toe, through the big toe. So that front foot strike, we can then finish everything out in front, down and through. Same thing, watching the back foot, driving into front foot strike, driving into front foot strike, driving, turning over the big toe, getting that back knee all the way rotated so the back hip starts to come forward at front foot strike, forward at front foot strike. So then we can be out in front, locking that leg out, locking that leg out, locking that leg out. So we can get down through our release. Switching to the side view of everything, and we're just going to first start again with looking at the front foot strike position. So this is, again, the moment in time when Trinan, front foot, makes contact with the ground. And same thing with AJ over here. Excuse me. Once that front foot gets settled on the ground and the knee braces that weight, and we can see that back foot position and how it's driven away from the rubber. How the back foot is driving away from the rubber, which pushes that back hip forward, which pushes that back hip forward at foot strike, forward at foot strike. Sorry, I got a frog in my throat. We can also notice at front foot strike that the glove is finished or finishing, and we're looking for that 90-ish degree, being this is the time that the ball is facing the same direction as your chest. So righty's ball at third, lefty's ball facing first. Belt buckle's turned over. And then we'll watch as we go through the throwing motion how this front knee is going to brace itself. It's going to lock out. It's going to stabilize. It's going to block, whatever term you like to think or categorize it as. But that leg goes from a bend to no bend, from a bend to no bend, in order to help get all that energy that the lower body created and send it up into the arm and not allow it to stay down here in the knee and go forward or roll out. This is what allows us to throw the baseball down and out in front as we rotate around. And this is what allows us to rotate down, out in front and around through release. But we got to be able to start feeling ourselves really getting down. Really getting ourselves down at release and out in front with this forward trunk tilt. Our trunk is from our shoulders to our hips. This mass of our body we call our trunk. We want to be taking our trunk at foot strike is usually pretty close to up and down, and then we got to use our trunk to accelerate this throw down and out in front. When that foot lands in ground at front foot strike, we're usually more up and down, and we need to use that trunk to send that ball down and out in front. Next two examples. Oop, I didn't get Chapman a front foot strike yet. My bad. Okay, so if we watch this back foot, how it's just going to drive away from that rubber. Heel's not trying to come up in the air, it's just trying to turn over. What are we turning over? We're turning over the big toe. Watch this little piece of toe here that's in the light. Should turn over. It folds over. So the crease in the shoe is folding over that big toe so we can drive through it. And that's the movement that gets this back hip to go forward. That's what finally gets the pelvis to start to rotate forward. Gloves finishing, 90-ish degree angle. Belt buckle, back hips coming through. Over here, watch that back foot. Through the big toe, through the big toe, through the big toe. Also noticing how long this back knee is staying back. Noticing how long this back knee is staying back and not constantly going in, down, as his body's going out. Because if that's the case, his weight's going back, down and out. We need to try to keep that weight back. We need to try to stay in this back hip so we can drive that back hip. So trying to keep that knee above that back foot as long as we can, as best we can. Then when we can't, then it's time to start to rotate. Boom. So then now the knee is strong, and we can see how it's locking out, locking out, locking out. We land at foot strike, and we can see knee holding strong, trying to lock out. Okay. Some more here. Kershaw. Back foot. Boom. Back foot. Boom. Back hip. Go forward. Back hips facing first. Start going forward. Start going forward with the back hip. All because the back foot's doing that. Get the knee to do that, which pushes and drives the pelvis forward. Gloves getting to finish. Arms in that 90-ish. Shoulders have not rotated yet. Shoulders have not rotated yet. Gloves starting to finish. Arms in that 90-ish. Back foot. Boom. 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 So we can see all these guys, different heights, different arm slots, different body shapes, different arm slots. But a lot of the same movements with the back leg, because that's the sequence that we need to do in order to get that back hip to start to come forward. So then the throw, boom, out in front and down. Okay. And then we got one more. Jake Arrieta, same thing. Back foot, 90-ish degree. Glove finishing. Belt buckle, back hip getting forward. We take that back. We watch the back foot. Boom. Boom. So then he can release down and out in front. Leg locking out. Front leg locking out. Front leg locking out. Front leg locking out. And now we can see what we look like at our front foot strike position compared to what we just saw with those big leaguers. So find where you're at. Take a look at your front foot strike position. Again, the position at which your front foot has gotten into the ground. When your front foot has gotten into the ground, front foot has gotten into the ground. When the front foot has gotten into the ground, when the front foot has gotten into the ground. Oops. When the front foot has gotten into the ground. And when the front foot has gotten into the ground. So all those checkpoints we just talked about in the big leaguers, let's see which ones you're getting to, which ones you're not getting to, which ones are close, what looks the same, which looks different. All right, we can think about first that wanted to see that 90-ish degree angle in our arm. Do we have that? We can say we would if our shoulders weren't rotated already. We have 90-ish. We could potentially say we would have 90-ish, 90-ish if our shoulders weren't rotated all the way through. Little less than 90. But then there's our 90, and we'll discuss why this is like that. Over here, we can't really tell because of how much our shoulders have rotated, but we can say if we backed it up, 90-ish, 90-ish. But again, by the time that front foot gets in the ground, where our body's at, and then we can see here, 90-ish, little less than 90, and we'll be able to explain why that is later on. Is your back hip driving forward like we see here, like it's trying to here, like it has here and here, or is it still to the side, to the side? Where's our belt buckle going? Is it going to the target, or is it still facing the camera? All right. How's your back knee positioned? Is that back knee turned over all the way? What about your back foot? Is that back foot rotated and driven through the big toe like we saw in all those videos? And then we'll let these loop through a little bit, and then we'll start breaking down each one individually. Okay, and since it's gonna be too hard to have all your guys' videos up at once, we're gonna do 3 at a time or so, with having a big leaguer up at the same time for comparison. So if we just look here and see the 90, 90-ish degrees, we can see belt buckle. We can see back hip is starting to go forward. We can see good posture on his front leg. Knee is fully rotated, and the posture of the back leg. You can see that foot is fully turned over. How did it get there? Well, it was driving through that big toe. Through that big toe. Through that big toe. Through that big toe. Into his foot strike. Into his foot strike. And we notice how his foot is trying to match that angle of the mound so it can get fully into it as quick as possible. So then we look at you guys here, And we can see here that 90-ish degree angles. We can see the glove and the glove are in a finishing position by the chest, finishing position by the chest. However, we can see that the back foot has not driven or rotated through the big toe like we see here, where we get this type of angle. We have this type of angle. When does your foot get to this type of position? Well, it occurs here. And now we are in a position of similarity with the angle of our backside. And we can really see how much more that back hip is able to come through when we drive through the big toe. You can see how much more that hip is going through the big toe. We just need to make sure that's occurring into our stride, into our foot strike, not after. That's how we maximize our upper lower half separation, or our hip shoulder separation. Hips going in, the hips going this way, while the shoulders stay back this way. There we go. So now we can see that we got this and this more similar, which then gets our hips more through. But unfortunately, we can see our upper body is no longer in the same position that it once was when we were... Why is it not exiting for me as well as it was before? It was there. So we can see when we are able to match upper body with Granke at foot strike, for sure. But in order for lower body to match, we just have to go so much further in time to get there that we sacrifice our upper body coming through. So now we don't have as much built up tension. So now we just lose a little bit of power going straight to our target. And that's why we kind of have a little bit extra of our body going over to first. Okay. What's going to help us with this adjustment is noticing that when we get Granke going through his delivery here, okay, and he's here. Notice now as we get him playing, his body is going to be gaining. Obviously, the camera is shaking a little bit, so that line has moved. Okay, but if we... Oops, I don't want that. And then we get our... So as we said, we just draw the line right here. Boom. How his whole body is gaining ground as he's sitting into that delivery. We do that same thing over here for you and draw that line here. Now your body's starting to gain ground. So how are we going to be able to get the back foot to want to drive on time? Well, we're going to get some momentum going. So that way your body is already further ahead. So that way the back foot's going to want to trigger its motion sooner. So that way it has enough time to finish it completely. So what we want to think about is from the top of the leg lift, boom, boom. We're already starting to get our whole body going forward. So from the top of the leg lift here, we want to start to get the whole body going forward. Getting the whole body, whole body wanting to go forward, minus just the lower body. And then the upper body is trying to come after. So we add some momentum into your beginning stages of your leg descent. Instead of it being straight down, 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 down with your leg and your body, we're going to get that body going down and out. So that way we have momentum to our target. So that way when the back foot decides to kick in, hopefully it's a little bit sooner and it'll be a little bit easier for it to do it completely because of that momentum. So we'll be able to complete it at foot strike. We'll be able to complete that backside drive and rotation before front foot strike instead of it happening after foot strike. And we can see it just loses connection with the ground because of that. It wants to send us forward, 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 but it can't go forward if our brakes are already put on. But it can send us forward if the brakes are not on. Boom, boom, boom. So this is a timing thing. Excuse me. Just a timing piece with our lower body, specifically the back foot. In order to get the timing down, we just got to make sure we're not going straight down and just the lower half kicking out in front, but the body as a whole gaining ground as we sit into it. Gain ground, not sit into it and then try to go straight forward, but down and out. Not so much down. Now we're trying to go out. We want to think more down and out. If that makes sense to you. Hopefully it does. Because once we get that going, everything else is looking good, like we said from the front view. We're close. Very close. So then we'll go over here. Boom. And we can see those differences again. Where if we get boom, foot strike. If we got your upper body, it'd be right there, and which is the moment of first contact with your heel, actually. Would make the upper body very similar. But then we can see, get the foot all the way down. This is where the upper body gets to. You can also see that when the heel does first make contact, the back foot hasn't done anything yet. It's just the heel starting to lift up off the ground. So now as the foot's going in, or the toes are going down, that's pulling the body forward. It's pulling the body forward, pulling the body forward, pulling the body forward, which then pulls the heel of the back foot forward, which makes it look like it's rotating, but it's really just the heel getting jolted Oops, that's Granky. It's really just the heel getting pulled forward. This heel is just really getting pulled forward, and that kicks that back toe out behind you. It kicks it back that way. Boom. So we got to learn how to drive from our back leg into our front leg, how to rotate from our backside into our front side. Right now, we're kind of just getting legs down, boom, boom, and then trying to rotate them. And we can see when your shoulders are in this forward position where your hand is located. Your hand is still like behind your head. Like right now, we have a 90-degree angle right here, and then this angle here. When we get Granky's shoulders to that same side position, boom. Where's the arm at? The arm's laying back. I think the same thing over here. 90-90 is there. And then as the shoulders rotate, the arm is laying back. So that way it can catapult forward. But with your position here, your arm can't catapult forward. It's going to have to go around, and now it's going to try to go forward. See how there's a lot of around occurring? It's a lot of stress that goes on the elbow to throw the baseball in this type of way, because we're having to get back across ourselves a little bit because there's so much energy going out and around. A lot of it's going out and around, and now if it keeps going around, if it keeps going out and not as much around, the ball's going to sail behind that righty's head. So that means it's having to do a lot of around. We're having to get around the baseball a lot instead of staying behind the baseball and through the baseball. Instead of staying behind the baseball and through behind the baseball and through the baseball, we end up getting a lot more around the baseball and then try to get through the baseball. And that's what adds that extra stress to the elbow. So what's causing that? Well, I think it could be how quickly our arm goes straight back. Boom. If we notice how the arm goes more straight, ba 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 ba. You got ba, same thing. And then you're here. 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 See that extra movement that's going on? How that hand's coming towards your head versus the hand flipping up. Hand flipping up. Hand flipping up. Yours is coming to your ear. To your ear, then it's flipping up. So why is it chasing back into you? Why is it having to go from here and chase and get all the way to here? If we look at this, ball's out, down, and it's here, and then it's just going to flip up. Flip up. Flip up. And then we go to Granky. Just down here, and it's here, and then it's just gonna flip up, flip up, flip up. So what we want to think and figure out is what's going on with our arm path that's causing it to go from this position that all of us are in with the arm. And what's different about yours that takes your hand from here? It doesn't just flip the arm up, but it keeps going up, 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 and then here. Because that movement of going from way back here to here, this path, I believe with good high percentage is what is leading to it laying back on this type of angle here instead of more of this type of angle here. Laying back versus it laying over there instead of this way. It gets this way here, but it's just a little late, and I'm curious of what's going on. So we're gonna definitely be taking a look at what's going on from different perspectives, different angles, just while you're playing catch, so we can figure out if there's anything that we can see that can explain what's going on there. And I just want to make sure that there's nothing that could be causing issues with arm health, especially now that we're on this mound and we got a lot of things going in our favor if we can use them accordingly. And that's the slope and the extra elevation. One thing that we can think about is how far does the ball ever get away from the body? So for you, here to the hip, we'll just say that distance there is that long. And then we look at the same aspect for these guys. And obviously arm length is going to have something to do with it. How much the body is going down the mound has something to do with it. But it's how much the arm stays with the body versus the body going away from the arm as well. So boom, boom, and it's that far. Another thing we can look at is from ball to back foot and the pitching rubber. It's right there. Ball to back foot is right there. That's the distance behind the pitching rubber. And then ball. Oops, that's not a good straight line. So maybe is it that? Maybe is it the hand is going pretty far behind the pitching rubber. The hand is going backwards a lot. So therefore it's going to have to come, if the ball is going this way a lot and we throw the ball this way and the ball is going this way, at some point the ball is going to have to go back this way in order for us to throw it this way. Whereas more as the ball is falling out of the glove and then not really going anywhere beyond well, that's not the right person, is it? Not really going beyond that line there. So boom, the ball's falling out there. Yeah, his body is still going away. His body is still gaining ground, but the hand is staying with the body, you could say. Whereas we see, oops, I'm hitting too many different buttons here. Because you see how much it's traveling behind that line and then how much it has to catch up after that line to get back with your body. So I gotta draw the line more over here. All right, so we can just kind of see that where these guys are letting the ball fall out of the glove, wherever it's coming out of the glove at, it doesn't get further behind that line much more than that distance. Coming out of the glove there, and doesn't get much further than that. You're just coming out of the glove here, and we need to see how much further back it goes, and therefore it's going to probably have to come more forward after. So that's probably our explanation. So then we can also then look at lower body and add that then to the thing of how now the foot's kicking out underneath us and we're trying to throw at the same time. There's a lot of extra moving things going on while we're trying to rotate, which is then would add extra, just a little extra stress to that arm. So we're going to want to think about maybe some arm path drills as well, just trying to keep this ball from wanting to go so much further this way out of the hand, and instead just stay more in like this tight little window here with it, instead of letting it get back behind it. All right, so like we were saying, upper body is looking good at this point. Arm path, like we just had mentioned, very good, looking clean. Flipping up when we need to. Now we just got to make sure that the shoulders stay closed at foot strike and don't keep opening up that slight little bit like we saw from the front view. All right, but now let's talk about what we need to talk about with that back foot, and that is seeing how it's just kind of that heel is just coming up, 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 and then now we're here versus driving through that big toe into foot strike, driving through the toe into foot strike. Your heel's just coming up, your foot striking, and now you're trying to rotate, but that rotation can't really occur because the front foot's already in the ground, so it just kind of folds underneath itself. And it's doing it at the same time as we're trying to throw, which makes it difficult for us to get the ball down and out in front, and that's why we kind of just we're trying to get it in front of us. We're trying to get it out in front of us, and we're just barely missing it. But all in all, upper body is moving well. We just got to keep the upper body from wanting to rotate forward as this arm is flipping up into its rotation. So as this arm is flipping up into its rotation, we're trying to not have this front shoulder open up. We look at you, and as this front shoulder is flipping up, we can see how it's opening up, starting to want to open up. But if the foot was in the ground right now, yeah, we'd be sweet. But we can see the foot now is in the ground. The foot is now in the ground, and just how much more that front shoulder has continued to rotate open versus it staying closed as much as it can still. Boom. Boom. Now that shoulder is in a very similar position that your shoulder's in, but it's because he's already starting to throw. Yours is because I'm still getting my lower body stable and fully into the ground. Now I can start to throw. So we're just losing that little extra bit of rotation to throw with. So that's our big focus. Is going to be learning how to drive through that big toe and not just lift up the heel. But not just lift the heel up, but try to keep the heel on the ground as long as we can, so that way we can drive it forward. We want to drive the heel forward towards our target with the heel. Boom. The heel is in front of the toe. You can see here, your heel and your toe are very much almost the same. So that's just showing you there of what we need to be working with our backside foot to be able to drive our body out and produce power with our lower half. All right, then we look at U4, and we can see, again, this back foot angle compared to what we have here. We have here, here, and here. So we can just see how much more this back foot has turned over, driven through the big toe, through the big toe, through the big toe. Through the big toe. Through the big toe. Through the big toe into front foot strike. You can see that 90-ish degrees. Not so much here. Not so much here. You can also see what the glove is finishing, where the belt buckle is facing. The back hip is rotated forward versus the back hip and the belt buckle still here. Back hip and belt buckle still here. Back hip and belt buckle still here. And it's very tough to tell with black on black. Which is using context clues of what the back foot is doing. We can assume that the belt buckle is probably going in this type of angle, probably more here. Yeah, let's reset that. Belt buckle is probably more going in this direction, which means back hip is trying to, but can't really come forward right now. So now we can see that. We'll get your guys' playing through. So then we can start talking about each of them and comparing it back to here of why some of these things that we're not able to get to is occurring. So if we get all of our back feet into a position that's of similar positions as we see Granke here, we can't ever quite get there because the foot is off of the ground already. But let's just say with what the lower body, with the knees and hips, we'll say here. Okay. So now the hips that we see here are similar to what we see here. This is similar, and we have somewhat of similar positioning here. Same thing here. If we go to get you, bud, so what we see with Granke, we would be having to get to like here, say here, with the hip starting to come through and the belt buckle starting to get to the target. But we can see the most we can get is still only here because of where we landed initially at, and where that then leaves the upper body at, and where we're at in this process with our arm, where our shoulders are at, all the way almost rotated through, versus still completely to the side. We get the back foot over here. Boom, right here, we could say. We are more matching what we see here. We can also say belt buckle and hip have gone. Belt buckle and hip have started to rotate. But we can also see where the arm is now at and where each shoulder is located versus where the arm is at and where both shoulders are located. So same thing then down here. Do the same thing to get your boom right there. So now we are in more of a similar backside position with the hip and belt buckle and the hip coming through finally with the belt buckle, and then our posture here and here. But then again, we can see where this arm is at versus where this arm is at. Ball is behind the head to second base. Your ball is behind the head to second base, but your elbow is not also behind your head to second base. Your elbow is rotating towards first base. It's already starting to come through. So we can see what occurs, what our upper bodies have to do, all the different little things that the upper bodies have to do in order to help us try to throw this baseball when our lower bodies did not get into the position they needed to once that front foot hit the ground. Front foot hit the ground, and we are in all of these different key positions. And we can see in order for us to get to those same key positions, how much our upper bodies are different than what we want them to be. So all four of us here, we need to learn how to drive off of our back leg into our front leg. So then we have this type of posture with our back foot, which then helps get the knee all the way rotated, all the way rotated, all the way rotated, all the way rotated, which then gets the back hip to start to go from being to second base, starting to come through. And all of that with that lower body occurring before any of the upper body starts to rotate to throw, because that happens after. And we can see all of us have already begun our throw in some type of manner, whether it's shoulders rotating or it's arm rotating. We are all beginning our throw before our lower body gets into a good position. And the reason for that is because your lower bodies are not getting into that proper position when they first get into the ground. But instead, it's taking you foot getting into the ground, then we get it all the way in the ground. Foot gets in the ground, then it gets all the way into the ground. Foot hits the ground, then it gets all the way into the ground. Heel hits the ground, then it gets all the way into the ground. So if we can drive better off of our back foot, rotate better off our back foot into our stride, rotating off of this into this, instead of being on here and on here, then this drives and rotates like we have with U4, we lose power that way. Or we can just flow that power up. We have momentum starting to go. Then we're going to start to rotate. Then we're going to start to drive into here, up to here, out through the throw. But if it doesn't happen in that order, energy can't get sent up into the throw. It'll just get stuck down here, and we'll be left to our own to try to throw with just our upper body. And now that we're on the mound, we definitely don't want to be doing that, especially as a pitcher, especially on a mound, especially as our distance gets further. So we're going to be doing a lot of lower body work, a lot of lower body drive drills, a lot of lower body rotation drills, a lot of just non-throwing drills to teach you guys how to move your lower bodies from one leg into the other leg, and not just put 2 feet down in the ground and then try to transfer energy from one leg to the other. At that point, it's too late.